Andrea Clausen here, and we are on day 2 of our mini cool down challenge. And we are going to do a yin practice. Yin is one of my favorite practices to do as well as to teach. So think of yin as kind of like what I'm wearing, just something cozy, comfy, like relaxing, not restricting. So we're going to do just a few postures. We're going to keep it short, simple, so just 3 postures. And they're all going to be pitta pacifying. So great for kind of calming down some of that intense energy that many of us might be feeling at this point in summer if you are in the summer season right now. All right, let's just do a few 1-minute breath work just to get ourselves grounded and landing here. So you might find a comfortable seat, palms flip down if you need grounding, or maybe you need energy and you can flip those palms up. We'll maybe close the eyes. And then just taking an inhale through the nose. Open mouth, exhale. Let's take that once more, breathing in through the nose. Sigh it out. And then starting to bring your breath in and out through the nose. Finding a nice steady breath here. Seeing if you can soften anything that is tense, that might be trying to tighten, that you don't need to be turned on right now. And then we'll find our samavriti breath, our even breath count. Inhaling in through your nose for a count of 4 or 5. Exhale through the nose for a count of 4 or 5. And so calming, peaceful, even breath. And as you continue that breath work, if yin yoga is a practice that's newer to you, there are just kind of 3 principles that we follow. One is we find our healthy edge in a posture. So you find that stretch and you stay there. You don't need to press and push on farther than that. Then we connect back to our breath. Maybe it's the samavriti breath. And then you settle into stillness. And so you move out of the pose if there is pain and discomfort. Otherwise, you really settle in and rest there. So we'll just take 1 or 2 more breaths here. And then we're going to get ready for our first posture. So that first posture is going to be a deer twist. So our props that we might use, you could have a bolster. This could also be a pillow. I'm also having a blanket because I have hardwood floor underneath me and my hips just prefer a little more padding. So I have a blanket underneath them. And then our legs, we're going to be at 90-90. So this front leg is going to be at 90 degrees. And then that back leg is going to be at 90. If this does not feel good, you can always just stack the legs together like so. So we'll have our legs situated in that deer pose. One hand can be on each side of the bolster. And we just might kind of take a pause here, maybe closing the eyes, find that breath. And feeling into the hips. And then when you're ready, you might gently let your right ear, so if your right hip is next to the bolster, your right ear might rest down. Some might prefer to turn their left cheek. And then wherever you're at, the palms or forearms are resting on the floor. And you want to find a nice deep breath. And so I'm just going to rest here because it's going to be a little bit easier for me to talk to you. Just to get you situated into the posture. And so taking your time as you set up, find that breath. And then we're going to be resting here for 3 minutes. Taking this first minute to find stillness. Then can you soften your shoulders away from your ears? And then tuning in, is there any place else that's gripping that you can release? Resting on this side for about 1 more minute. And if the mind wants something to think about as you're settling in, focusing on bringing the breath into the back body. With that inhale, can you feel your back expand? And exhale, feeling it soften. And then taking 1 or 2 more breaths here. And then you're going to gently press into the palms to shift yourself up. Maybe taking a pause in that seated position. Maybe you want to turn your back to your bolster or pillows and windshield wiper the knees left to right. And then to rotate to the other side, all what we're going to do is simply rotate and taking the opposite leg out in front and behind. I'm going to turn just so I am not turning my back to you. And so as you're shifting into that left hip might come next to the bolster. And then taking 1 hand on each side. And then once more, maybe that left cheek rests down, maybe a twist to the right cheek. Whichever one you're choosing, softening here once more. And then surrendering into the posture. Releasing tension through those forearms. And continuing to soften and melt there. And just noticing your relationship to rest and this stillness. This is a new practice to you. You might absolutely hate it. I know my first yin class, I thought, what is this? I want to accomplish things. I got my to-do list to do. I'm just resting here. But you're doing so much for your body. Just letting yourself have some space to be still, to get quiet and just listen. Sometimes we're afraid of the answers that come up in the stillness. But in Ayurveda and yoga, it's so important to go in and face them. Living a life of truth rather than hidden and hiding from our authentic selves. We'll take just a few more deep breaths here on this side. And then when you're ready with one of those next exhales, again, pressing up, maybe taking that seat. And then again, maybe you want that movement side to side with the legs. Maybe you just want to pause in this liminal space and just find some stillness. Taking a few breaths and noticing if you're wanting to rush to what's next, instead of just resting in what is. Then our next posture is going to be Sphinx pose. You can use your bolster if you wanted for that, and you would go over the top. So if you wanted to use your bolster, you simply rest it on the belly and the forearms are down. And in yin, notice it's okay if the shoulders come up by the ears. So they don't have to be perfectly pulled down. So you can use that bolster if you want. I'm actually going to keep it because it actually feels pretty good for me right now. Or you don't need the bolster, and then you would just be in Sphinx without that bolster. So you can choose. Again, I'm enjoying it this evening, and so I'm going to have that posture here. Your legs are just straight back behind you. Your toes are uncurled. And for this, your eyes might soften. If the shoulders underneath the elbows stacked does not feel great, you can always take those elbows out a little bit more, and that gets a little less curvature in the back. And so as we're resting here, eyes again might soften or stare softly at the top of your mat. Finding that breath. And in this posture, it's great to work on digestion. And so maybe as you're inhaling, what do you need to digest from your day? And I'm not talking about what you ate necessarily, but what from your day might still be pulling at you that you need to digest and release. And final minute here, if ever you need to come out of this early crocodile pose is where you'll head, which is just turning your heels inwards, toes outward, and letting your forehead rest down in the palms. Otherwise, resting here for another 5 or 6 breaths. And then we'll all go ahead and meet down in that crocodile, heels in, toes out, letting that forehead rest in the back of the palms. Finding your breath here. You might keep that bolster. You can, again, if you have that bolster underneath you, you can also remove it. But breathing all the way down to the low belly, feeling the diaphragm. Inhale, open. Exhale, soften. And then we'll slowly take the palms beside our chest, pressing back into a tabletop position. And then we just have one final posture, which is going to be a child's pose. Option to take it without a bolster, or if you want to use that bolster, taking knees to each side of the bolster or pillow. And then you might rest one cheek down. I'll let us know when we're halfway, or maybe letting that forehead rest right on the bolster. But just settling in for your final 3 minutes. If you need to press or place any blankets between your hips and your glutes, you can always do that as well to give a little bit more height, or another bolster there. But wherever you're at, can you soften and melt just a little bit more, releasing through the fascia. Yin is opening up the fascia in the body. The one thing that's unique about fascia is it's got a mind of its own. So until the body feels ready to release, it won't. And so the fascia is a unique system. And so finding this time to be in stillness and focus on the breath can help the body learn it's okay to relax. And we're halfway. If you want to switch which cheek is on a bolster, if you're have one cheek down. Slowly with those next few exhales, you might make your way into, again, maybe a little cat-cow or a tabletop, a little gentle movement here. And then we're just going to pause for a minute. If you want to take a meditative seat, you can. If you want to come over the bolster, this is where blocks could come in handy, but we're just going to go ahead and lie down over the top of that bolster. Soles of the feet together, knees can open in butterfly, arms might rest out. And then with that pitta dosha, feeling our feelings is sometimes we shove them down. And so really being okay with letting the feelings arise right now. So taking a minute just to let everything wash over you. Any open mouth exhales, releasing. And then thanking yourself for showing up on your mat. You might stay here and rest, or if your time is ready to move on, you might bring the knees together and gently roll up to a seated position. And we'll just seal off that mini practice by taking those palms together up above our heads, bringing them down to that third eye, trusting your intuition, bringing your hands to your lips, speaking your truth, bringing your hands to heart center, knowing yourself. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Bowing in so much gratitude. Thank you.